It's the Extremist movie debate. And tonight, we're talking 2016's The Nice Guys.
I am Joe.
I'm Ethan, and one of us is going to love it, one of us is going to hate it.
Let the coin decide their fate.
I hate it.
And I love it. Hey guys, don't send a bunch of hitmen after us because there's going to be spoilers ahead.
Alright, and this movie has a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, which means it's certified fresh. And Joe, since you love it, this first question is going to go to you. This comes from J.R. Jones from the Chicago Reader. He says, because it's set in the 1970s, we're supposed to think back to Chinatown and The Long Goodbye and excuse the opaque plot around which Shane Black's eccentric gags float like seasoned croutons in a bland soup. So, can you briefly comment on the slapstick humor and whether or not it elevated the film or just kind of took away? You have 1 minute.
I think it definitely elevated the movie because I love it, yeah?
Yeah, you love it.
Yeah, no, it definitely elevated the movie because basically, like, you're taking, like, Chinatown and Mean Streets and, like, the crime movies from the 70s, basically, and so you're taking that kind of, like, base level plot, and then you're transcending that genre by throwing in some slapstick humor to it. So when you're adding the humor, you're adding those, like, nice little hints of spice, and with those nice little hints of spice, you just bake up this nice little stew, and it stews really well, and it smells great, and it looks great, and it's really essentially making a mishmash out of genres. And when you make a mishmash out of the genres, it just makes it all the more entertaining because they pull everything off. This movie isn't one thing, so there's something for everybody, and that's what's so damn appealing about it.
Okay, thank you, Ethan. You have 30 seconds to respond.
Hey, this movie's less of a melting pot and more of a tossed salad with each little individual element standing out on its own, and those individual elements are poor, the slapstick being one of them. So if you're talking about the slapstick, this movie has a 5-minute scene, it feels like, where Ryan Gosling is trying to figure out how to stand himself up in a toilet stall while talking to Russell Crowe. It's not that funny, because it just goes on and on and on, and it was already not that funny. And then it just gets worse and worse. I'm only laughing because you're laughing. Let the record show that. This movie even goes so far...
Okay, Ethan, I'm going to have to cut you off there. I'm sorry. Joe, you have 15 seconds to respond.
But it's the humor because that's how that character would actually react. So it's slapstick to an extent, but at the same time, it's like they built a character so well-rounded that you know that's exactly how he would respond. So it's not this, like, slapstick, stupid guy for the stupid sake.
Okay,
it's
Joe, that's
how he
your
would
15.
react.
I'm sorry. Ethan, you have a final 15 to respond.
You hardly know the character at this point. This is like 20 minutes into the movie. This is a character who falls off a roof and lives so much that he actually points out that he thinks he's invincible. That's all we know about this character, is that he is slapstick.
That's at the end.
Yeah, exactly. That's his arc. I'm slapstick, I continue to be slapstick / invincible.
Okay, thank you. And we're going to move on to the next question. Ethan, this is for you. This comes from Mara Reinstein of Us Weekly. And this is on Gosling and Russell Crowe. She says, the actors effortlessly volley the comedic balls back and forth in the sublime and well-crafted action comedy. The odd couple hilariously squabble over everything from how to decipher a scribble on a piece of paper to the pros and cons of riding up in an elevator where certain trouble awaits at the top floor. So, can you comment on Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe's chemistry and whether or not you think it felt organic or contrived? You have 1 minute.
Well, I mean, contrived. It's the same thing when you take a February release romance movie, and it's just because two characters are in a room together, obviously they're in love. Just because these two characters are in a room together, obviously they're funny, but they're not. These are two characters from a dramatic background. That's how we know them, and that's how they know how to act. These characters do not convey a sense of comedic value in any sense throughout this movie. They are very, very stiff and very unloving, and I never smiled once watching them interact with each other.
Okay, thank you. Joe, you have 30 seconds to respond.
I feel like it's just a little, it's kind of silly that your question was how these two actors had chemistry, and Ethan just went to how he didn't like the characters. So I don't think Ethan truly understood.
Actors didn't like the actors.
I don't think he necessarily understood the question because he kept saying characters. But no, I think they work perfectly together. And with Shane Black's writing, like, the way he writes jokes is just great. And you have kind of the doofus, which is Ryan Gosling, and you have the straight man, which is Russell Crowe, and they're just so good at both of those areas. And Russell Crowe, I mean, maybe he was a little bit typecast at this point, but
okay,
he,
Joe,
like,
that's your
nails
30 seconds. I'm sorry. Ethan, you have 15 seconds to respond.
Typecast is what, the tough man? Is that what you're going for? Because I see him as a fantastic singer. I see him as a fantastic dancer. I see him as a fantastic god. These are the parts that he plays. Yeah, Winter's Tale. You didn't see the movie? Everybody saw that movie.
Okay,
It's
Ethan,
amazing.
that's your 15 seconds. I'm sorry. Joe, you have a final 15 to respond.
No, I think Yeah, he's like the tough guy. He's the straight man who's just very serious all the time, and that's essentially what he does in this movie again. And Ryan Gosling, I like seeing him kind of go outside of his bounds and just be the doofus because he's always the hunky, like handsome guy, and he's not really the handsome hunky guy in this movie, and I appreciate
Joe,
that.
Thank you. And so we're gonna open up the floor for 5 minutes and let you guys have an open discussion. And go.
So your value of this movie is that Ryan Gosling gets to open up and not be the hunky guy, and that's what makes this movie funny?
That's not my only value. And you call it a salad, and sure, it's a salad because
you called it a stew, which I think you wanted to say gumbo.
I wanted to say stew. Jared Jones or Mara Reinstein called it a stew.
I would call it a stew. I would, because it bakes together quite nicely and it makes a very nice aroma.
Like a gumbo.
Putting all of them, yeah, like a gumbo. If you want to call it a gumbo, you can call it a gumbo.
I do want to.
You want to call it a salad?
I really
want to call it
a mixed salad.
I want to call it just a normal meal. It's a meal with a plate and they're all separated on the plate. That's what I want to call it.
That's kind of what I called it. You have each individual characteristic, and they do not work well together. And on the one part, you have a buddy cop movie, which of course a buddy cop is going to be fine in this because this is the guy who fucking invented the buddy cop genre. This guy did.
True.
Yeah, he did. And so if it's going to be good at all, it's going to be that.
Do it.
But then he mixes in slapstick. He mixes in detective noir.
There was slapstick in all the Lethal Weapon movies. The Lethal Weapon movies had slapstick. So just flat out ignoring that aspect of it is just shitty on your part.
The extent of the slapstick in the Lethal Weapon movies is Mel Gibson jumping off a roof with a guy. That's not slapstick. That's terrifying.
No,
that scene leads to another scene in which they're trying to fire him, which Danny Glover is trying to get him not to be his partner anymore.
Why don't you
that scene has a consequence. The bathroom stall does not have a consequence.
Why don't you think it works? You're calling the bathroom scene
because
the
slapstick happens without consequence. It either happens as an excuse for somebody.
What's the consequence of the bathroom scene? He drops a cigarette.
There is no consequence.
Him being stupid.
But it drags on for 5 minutes. That's the problem.
It's showing that he's not great at like the day-to-day aspects of his job, but he sees the big picture. So he's good at his job in the grand scheme of things, but in like the minute details, because you see that when he punches the window at the beginning. Punches the window to try to break in and cuts his hand up, and I laughed for like fucking 10 minutes at that scene.
Okay, but that scene lasted about 2 seconds. That was fine. That was an adequate amount to depict that joke.
Yeah, but I think you're misremembering him in the bathroom stall because that scene didn't go on for 10 minutes.
It did in my mind. It did in my heart.
Yeah, well, guess what?
Here's the problem.
Him cutting his heart, 10 minutes in my mind and heart.
2 other scenes, he falls from a high distance and lives, and he even points it out twice. Both times he thinks he's invincible, and that is the arc of this character, is that he thinks he's invincible.
No,
but that's the extent of the slapstick.
He's fighting for his daughter. He's fighting for his daughter, so he's the most well-rounded character in the entire fucking movie because he's doing all of this for his daughter. He's a single parent guy.
Okay, but to have a character who needs to get from one height to another height, and instead of writing in a clever way to do it, he just has him fall off and says, "Oh, he lives. Great." That's the extent of this writing.
That's the running gag of the movie.
But it's not a gag. It's an excuse for sloppy writing.
Just because you don't like the gag doesn't mean it's not a gag, and it doesn't mean it's sloppy writing. It just means that you, like we have previously proven, don't have a sense of humor, and you don't understand comedy.
This movie's also part porno, by the way. This movie opens up on boobs. There's an entire scene.
I call them breasts because I am a feminist.
Breasticles. There's this entire scene where this movie is filled with breasticles in every which way. There's actually another scene where Ryan Gosling for 30 seconds
there's 2 scenes.
Gets drunk and then chases after a couple women in an aquarium. For fuck's sake.
I laughed really hard at that.
This is a hard-boiled detective story, and it features Ryan Gosling swimming in an aquarium with nude women.
He's the crooked guy.
This movie does not know what it wants to be.
No, it does, because he's the doofus. He's playing the role to how the role is supposed to be played. Russell Crowe is the straight man. So essentially, you're saying, like, I didn't like this movie because there was a doofus in it. Like, of course there's a doofus in it.
If there's a doofus in it, that's fine, but you don't need to focus the movie on the doofus. You can have a better character than that. Because
it's called the nice guy.
It's called Russell Crowe is a straight man. Neither of them are nice, by the way. Stupid name. But if you're going to focus a movie on a doofus and a straight man, get rid of the doofus, because that only works in a context that is real. And in real life, we could see that working together. In real life, Russell Crowe would have ditched Ryan Gosling 2 seconds in after he realizes, oh wait, this guy can't even figure out how to open a fucking bathroom stall door.
He needs Ryan Gosling because Ryan Gosling sees the big picture. Ryan Gosling's good at his job, just not in the details of opening doors and breaking into places and falling off roofs.
What'd you really think of it?
It was okay.
I loved it. It's really good.
Yeah, it's fine. Like I've told you guys before, my biggest problem with this movie is, like, when you watch Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, like, Gay Perry, Val Kilmer's character, is like the straight man, and Robert Downey Jr. is like the doofus, like the dumb guy. And there's not a whole lot of overlap. It's mostly like Val Kilmer trying to cover up for Robert Downey Jr. while Robert Downey Jr. tries his best. And the nice guys, like Russell Crowe's the straight guy, and Ryan Gosling's the doofus, of course. But like, there's overlap. So there's moments where Russell Crowe like does a really stupid thing where he like takes on the doofus role, and I don't remember at this point. Like, it's been a while, but I do know there are moments where he just like he plays kind of the idiot, and Ryan Gosling has like these brief moments of like genius and like where he's really good and he pulls it off. And like that happens with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, but it's always like an accident. Like Robert Downey Jr. will pull something off by accident, and that's the joke of it. Whereas the Nice Guys, I feel like there's too much overlap between the two like archetypes of what they're portraying, basically.
I disagree a little bit with that because I can't think of any instance when Russell Crowe actually did something doofusy. It was always Ryan Gosling. Even, chasing the film canister at the end, that was still just Ryan Gosling happenstancing everything through that scene. Where Russell Crowe was, shooting a guy through a jacuzzi, which, by the way, that would not work in real life, but it was awesome in the movie. So
it might work in real life.
I don't think that Russell Crowe has those moments. I could be wrong. Again, it has been a while, but I really liked it. I think it works really well. I think Shane Black definitely knows how to make somehow a buddy cop detective movie that's a comedy, and it's been his shtick for a while. He does very good things with violence. He does them either over the top or small enough, something like the punching through the window to try to break in. It's something that any other movie somebody would have punched through. It's something that any other movie somebody gets thrown through a plate of glass, they get up and keep running. In this movie, he's trying to break in, just a tiny tap with his fist, and it sends him in an ambulance to the ER. And those little things make this movie, make Shane Black actually just a really good writer-director. He focuses on these things that are absurd in other movies, and he just brings it to light. It's, what everybody loved about Deadpool, except this movie does it without the gross satire and breaking the fourth wall. He's got his thing. It works really well. I like it.
Yeah, I'm a Shane Black fan.
All right, cool. So what would you guys rate this movie?
I give it 8 out of 10 lightning strikes and no thunder.
Like 6.5, 7. No thunder.
Okay, well, thank you. And where can we find you guys online?
You can find us on Twitter at Extremist Movie. You can find us on Facebook at Extremist Movie Debate, and you can email us at extremistmoviedebate@gmail.com.
And you can also write a comment below if you see a movie coming out that you want us to review. And you can write down whatever question you might want us to ask us about that movie, and we will go ahead and debate that question on air, and Jeff will read it out. So
yes, I will. All right, well, thank you, gentlemen, and we will see you next time.
Good luck and good night.
Thanks.
Extremist.